My name's Dave DeMillo. Again, I was on the panel yesterday, and I run our consulting business through our professional services team. I have a long history in this crazy business of ours, working for IBM and a few other companies. But what I do is I work with usually our largest customers and help them put together their licensing plans. Hello? You can't hear me? Wow, I'm practically yelling. No, it does not project. It's not connected to the PA. Wow, okay, I'll try to speak louder. Okay. Yeah, I know, I understand. I got a mic, but it's not projecting. I know, exactly. Let me flip applications. Come on in. Yeah, now the idea today is to take a look at web portals and how to some ideas around how to make your customer's web experience through your licensing portal a good one. And so we're going to start. I'm actually going to be light on the PowerPoint and sort of heavy on a demo with a company that I feel really got it right. Now, when I talk to customers, 90% of them say, great, we're going to build a web portal. We want to make this thing really easy. And really the idea, we say, you want your customers to have self-service and all that good stuff, but behind the scenes, what you really want to try to do is drive down your licensing support cost. When I worked for IBM, by far our biggest expense, I mentioned this yesterday, was the cost of supporting the people who answered the phones to create manual license keys. So we were trying to offer customer self-service to drive that cost down. And Karen is nodding because she's living that pain, and her company is moving rapidly towards automation. So when I talk to Safenet customers and prospects, they really fall into two buckets. There are the customers that are simply just have a short-term pain and they or an immediate pain, and they just want something web-enabled to get up and running and get things moving. And then there's a set of customers who really truly embrace the customer experience and put the effort and resources into truly getting it right. So not that either one of them is good or bad. Obviously, the one on the right is good for most companies. But the approach to these two sets is different. So what I'm going to do, actually, let me cover one more chart. So on the web side, I call it webby stuff. What I find is that not necessarily the number of products you have, but the attributes on the right? You can have a really straightforward and pretty simple implementation on the web side if your products fall into this category, where you maybe have one licensing technology, hopefully it's ours. You have very few license models, standalone license models or network, very few choices for your customers, and very few locking methods. So if you fall into this category, I think your web experience can be really simple. Your implementation can be really simple because your customers don't have to make too many choices. Therefore, you don't have to architect, all the exceptions and so forth on the website. Where things start to get more complex is where companies start to look at single sign-on, How you authenticating those users that come to your website, You have multiple technologies, Maybe you have some homegrown licensing. Most of the companies that we talk to have, 4, 5, 6. Who has multiple licensing technologies? Where are the hands? There we go. Multiple license models, multiple locking methods. Some products lock to a serial number, some lock to a disk ID, some lock to a MAC address, some lock to the kernel. When you need to offer those additional services around reporting, license rehosting, and so forth, those are the things that start to get complex. And if you don't take these things, if you have these categories and you don't approach the problem seriously, and put the right resources on it, you're really going to make a mess in general, I've lived that. I inherited a mess at IBM that, when actually at Rational before IBM, we rebuilt our back office, and I made less of a mess, but it was still a mess. before we finally got it right. So let's talk about what we offer at Safenet. Julie had been talking about the EMS back office that we offer, either hosted or on-premise. It doesn't matter. In general, we have connectors that facilitate ordered data going from an ERP, whether it's SAP or Oracle or some other ERP, as well as Salesforce into EMS. And EMS has a default customer web portal. The way I describe it, it services the customers on the left, the left from the previous chart. It's functional. And it needs to be better, and Julie's nodding because she knows it needs to be better. Right, Julie? Yes, thank you. But when we engage, with larger customers, this portal just doesn't scale. It doesn't cut it, plain and simple. Now, the great thing about EMS, and the more I work here at Safenet, I've been here for 4 years, but the more I work with larger customers, I truly believe this is a competitive advantage for us, because EMS is built around web services. Therefore, there's really two things to keep in mind, right? Not only can you extend your web portal to simply call into EMS, right? But because we're architected with web services, you can really define your customer experience, right? You're not locked into a customer experience that we define, right? And this is a competitive advantage, and certainly a difference between how we're doing this and our competition's doing it. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to stop showing you PowerPoint, because we tell our customers you can do these things, and I don't want to tell you, I actually want to show you. Okay, so what I'd really like to do is introduce you to the largest EMS installation. It's with a small little company called HP. Unfortunately, we're right in the middle of implementation with them, and they couldn't make it here, but they were very kind enough to allow me to talk about the project, to actually show you the web portal that we're building. So here's what we're going to do is I'm going to talk about the project real quick. I'm actually going to show you the web portal, the working web portal for the HP website that allows users to come in and activate and do the things on the right-hand side of that chart. And we'll talk about some good practices and so forth. I'm going to introduce Martin Peterson, who runs a company out of Los Angeles called Stellar, and I'll show you how those guys fit in a second. And then he is going to give some advice to Safenet customers that are going down the web portal path, either homegrown or using a partner or even using us, right? So don't take it from me, take it from an expert. All right, so let's talk about HP for a second. They came to us a little over a year ago, and they needed to move away from one of our competitors' solutions, and they truly believed that we had the right architecture on the EMS side, partially around because of the web service architecture that we talked before. They liked our scalability, they liked us as a company, everything really aligned, and it's been a fantastic, just underscore fantastic relationship with them. This gives you a sense of the scale. So Julie mentioned before that EMS is licensed technology agnostic. That means not only does it work with Safenet's license generators, but it works with homegrown, and there's some Safenet in there, mostly homegrown HP generators. There's some Flexera in there and so forth. Around 50, is it 50? It's 40 something. It's big. Lots of products, lots of entitlements. It's big. Now, HP has some pretty complex use cases. I've been doing this for a long time. I work with a lot of customers. It's not. They certainly are in the right-hand, part of the curve. So they have build to stock, build to order. They have, hardware use cases, hardware plus add-ons, trying to figure out who bought the software afterwards. So some of the use cases are pretty darn complex. And with their current solution, right, they expose those complexities to the end user, right? So even if you bought something simple and you're trying to activate it, because of the complexities with the other use cases, they force you to go through a bunch of hoops just to do something simple. So one of the key things of this project when they came to us is we had to hide those complexities. They wanted a real clean experience. When I show it to you, you're going to say, oh yeah, well, duh. But behind the scenes, we're doing a lot of complex stuff. So that was a key part here. And let me flip the chart. One more chart, and then we'll talk. Actually, I'll show you how it works. So within the HP landscape, they are hosting EMS themselves on their big iron. Orders go into SAP, and they actually go through an internal HP service before the data hits EMS. Not that that's a problem. And there's some handshaking going on between that service and EMS during license key generation, but you don't really need to know that. That was a tight integration point for us. The web portal obviously sits out here. This is a licensing web portal that's designed as part of this project. HP wanted us to build it, right? They didn't want to do it themselves, even though they could have. And we'll get into this a little bit. But that portal must use two forms of single sign-on. So it talks to two HP internal services, one to authenticate internal HP users that go through the portal, but mostly to authenticate external users. Okay, so this is proper HP.com user authentication. It's not SSO just for licensing. So if you go to HP and you want to buy, printer, ink, or whatever online, and they make you make an HP.com account, you're using that service right here. Okay, so it had to work with those. If you were in the HP store and you just connected to the licensing portal, we didn't want the user to have to log in again and so forth. So it had to, really work with the SSO.
So is this system going to work with both HP?
Both HP. Oh, with the split? I'm hoping we can sell it to them again, to be honest with you. Is that the right answer, Ansgar? Thank you. The HP team told us some information about that I probably shouldn't share, but the answer is yeah, it's got to work with both, right? A couple other things. We have one. Yes, let me give us one more chart. So if there are a few points that I can recommend to anybody is, especially if you're a Brocade or NetApp and you've got complex use cases, is really take your time to dive into the details of your customer experience, right? Don't underestimate, right, the importance of it. Martin's going to talk much more about that. Try to put yourself into the seat of your end users, right? And the way I try to describe it is, don't engineer your user experience from the back office outward, right? Flip it around and engineer your user experience from your user towards the system. It's maybe hard to visualize, but I think the approach, I've found it works a lot better that way. Know your limitations, and I think that's an important one. As a company, we're a products company, we're not a UI company. When we got faced with this scale of a project, Jem and I went to our management team. He said, we have to bring in somebody that really understands this and is a key part of their business. Therefore, so we partnered with Stellar. They're a company out of Los Angeles. Martin's here. He runs that company. So we brought him in in his team to design and to construct the web portal. So it's been a true three-way partnership between us, Martin, and with HP. So what I'm going to do is, there's Stellar, is go back here real quick and say one more thing, and then we'll bring up the portal. The way HP operates for the most part, right, with their primary use cases, is they will build to either to order or build to stock. So what their users get when you buy something from HP is you'll get either an email or a physical piece of paper, and on it is what they call an EON, right? You'll see that in the demo. I want to explain that up front. An EON is like your activation code. It stands for Entitlement Order Number. So when you see it in the demo, just envision yourself, let's say, buying a printer, right? So you get a box, it comes with a big yellow envelope in it, and it says, go here to activate your printer and use this Eon. Okay? Any questions about that? All right, cool. So I'm going to stop showing you PowerPoint and get to some good stuff. Okay, so what we're going to do is show you the HP web portal. This is actually a development environment. The real one, obviously, is behind the HP firewall right now, and I can't get to it. So this is a development environment. It's not locked up. It's not wrapped up nice and neatly. There's some tricks I need to do to kind of get around a few things in development, but for the most part, it's working. Okay. So as a user, envision buying your printer. You open up your yellow envelope, and it tells you to go to this website. You go to the My Licensing page on HP, and it asks you to log into hp.com. Using your account. If you don't have an account, then obviously you can create it on the fly. It's not very interesting, so I'm going to sign in.
Is this more of a B2C type of experience, or is it do you also support B2B2C?
Actually, wait a second. I'm sorry. How come I can't get in? You know what? I can just bypass this. That's it. Okay. It's mostly B2C, business consumers. Both they have partners, both partners and consumers, sure. And when I mention the use cases, they have very simple use cases where a consumer buys, a little widget from HP that has to be activated, to an extreme case where a large company buys a set of servers with, add-on software and all that stuff, right? At the same time. Okay, so once I log in as me, again, I authenticated with HP.com since I'm an external user. I get to the licensing main page, and what we really tried to do here is organize, activities to just activate my stuff. Let's make it really, really visible and apparent, how to just get my license activated, but also give some additional services around asset management. So I'm going to go back to these, and I'm going to, again, I opened up my envelope, and I'm going to type in my Eon. Of course, it's not going to tell me that this one's bad. Now, here's where the action happens. What happens is the portal talks to EMS, and because, again, EMS is built around web services, right? You're not stuck looking at a Safenet page, right? This is This is the web portal talking to EMS. It's looking up the entitlement. We're getting back a series of information about that entitlement. You can see that there are 4 products on the entitlement. We do a lot of checking to make sure that these products here are within a single product family. So all these items, the line items, are defined in EMS. All those properties are defined in EMS. So the product name, the part number, you can see the duration for those license keys are defined in EMS. And the web portal is simply rendering them as needed. If the products on the same entitlement or the same order were of different product families, we're going to render the page differently because that's what HP wanted, right? Again, crafting their user experience, not just working with ours. There are a few other things I want to point out. There are flags in EMS that indicate whether a product requires the end user to select the version or not. Right? So there's a flag in EMS that says this left hand needs a version. Of course, we haven't populated these in the development environment. And then we also do something interesting on the right here, where depending on the product, there's a definition in EMS that says some products we'll allow the user to activate some of them. So if they bought 100, they can, in one transaction, let's say, we're going to activate 60. Some products, just by the nature of the product, all of them must be activated at the same time. And then some products, just by the nature of the product, it only makes sense to activate one at a time. So all those business rules are built in. The rules are defined in EMS. The portal enforces the rules so that we can make this real simple, group-like things together. I mentioned before, previously around different technologies and different license models and so forth. And again, these things could use different license generators behind the scenes, but we're trying to hide those complexities to the end user, right? So we're doing a ton of checking, but it's a really simplified view.
You mentioned the different rules in EMS. Is that configuration or is that custom?
It depends what the rule is. Yeah. Okay. Getting back to the fact that we're built around web services allowed HP to say, again, they needed to craft an HP-centric user experience. And one thing they wanted to do is to allow the user to identify themselves and say, I'm activating for myself, or maybe I'm an HP technician who's activating on behalf of my customer, right? Or I'm a channel partner who's activating. I sold software to Jake Fox Incorporated, and I'm at his site, and I'm activating for him because he's a really busy guy. So if I'm a technician and activating for somebody else, I can put in my, I made up the term activatee, Zmail. I can create that user on the fly, but for the most part, I'm just going to pick this. We'll pick next. And here, this is another interesting piece of the activation process. Marketing people love to ask questions to end users. So there are certain products in HP, right, Ariella, they like to ask. And licensing people hate that marketing people like to ask product questions. No, seriously, some of the products in HP are defined in EMS so that the website will prompt the user for product-specific questions during activation. So those flags are in EMS. The questions are in EMS. So the web portal says, all right, you're activating the left-hand product line. I look it up in EMS. Do we ask these survey questions? Yes or no? If the answer is no, obviously we skip the screen. If the answer is yes, then the web portal will ask the questions, and I have to put in something here to skip it.
Or the questions and answers configurable.
Yeah, it's all configured. Yeah, yes, it's all they own EMS. It's sitting in there. It's all configurable, right? And if you know anything about EMS, all these things are at the license model level in EMS. So not only does the portal ask the questions, we capture the answers, and the answers go back to EMS, right? It's stored in EMS as well. Okay. This probably looks a little bit more familiar. So this is the locking screen where we prompt the user for the locking ID of the system on which the license is going to go. The products are, again, defined on the EMS side. The thing, if you will, that we're locking to is defined on the EMS side. So the web portal looks up the product and figures out, does it require locking? Actually, the second one doesn't even require locking, as you can see. And the other two products are defined to lock to the MAC address. So we have some tooltips that will pop up, and HP will populate these with instructions for the user on how to get that ID. Some of their products use the HP serial number. Again, that's a sticker on the side of a server somewhere. Some of them are, disk ID, MAC address, UUID, any flavor that you can think of, they use. But we do some other clever stuff where, because the portal knows who I am, because I logged into it, and it knows what product line I'm activating, we do a quick check in EMS to say, has this user activated anything else in that product family before? And if the answer is yes, then we allow them to simply, reuse a locking ID that they had before. Yes, Karen? Yes.
And you want to go in and check that information, is it available to you? Or
Yes.
is it only the person that logged in?
No, it's available to you.
And then can I, as the end user, modify that?
Yes. Yes. We'll come back to that. I'll show you that afterwards. Remember,
The market at the end of the field is
Contextual help.
information on where to
yeah,
get
tooltip. Yep. Okay, so I'll pick a couple of these. Doesn't matter. In this case, I could put in 2 different MAC addresses. It's not going to care. I'll pick next, and then something clever happens. EMS grabs all the information, and in order to generate a license, typically, EMS needs to know what that entitlement ID or the EON that I entered is, what's the order number or the order ID. It needs to know what the product is. I picked that. It needs to know the quantity. I entered that in some cases. it needs to know what I'm locking to. So the portal talks to EMS. EMS does all the heavy lifting in the background, generates what it needs to generate, and emails all the goods to the activatee. Because again, if I'm activating on behalf of somebody else, the somebody else is who gets the email, right? But a couple other things I want to point out here that we do that's pretty clever. So not only do we generate the key, but most of their products, HP wanted to also give the user something else, right? For example, a README file, how to install your key, download to a PDF that is a getting started guide or something like that. So all these definitions are still at the product level in EMS. The web portal is simply pulling those out, displaying it right. We give the user the ability to download those additional things or actually email them to somebody else. So if you think about the experience, I've logged in as me. I put in my EON, right, my entitlement order number. All I did is pick the product, put in the locking code, and I'm done. Right? And behind the scenes, we did a lot of checking to make sure that everything goes in the right system and everything's aligned. Yeah, John?
Can you activate or register products from different eons, from different order numbers? At the same
Yes.
time, same transaction?
Yeah, if I go back to the... I'll show you this. Why do we... Martin?
They wanted an external survey as well.
Oh, that's right, the survey. I just have to pick it twice and I don't have to take it. Note that. Yeah, John, so if you have multiple, we have a tooltip that tells you how to concatenate them, right? And that's a really important point because some of the use cases, most of the Safenet customers probably in the room are equipment manufacturers, right? And in their case, this is a pretty common use case, they're selling a box of something, a physical piece of hardware, plus add-on software. Right, so the customer's going to get like 6 or 7 of these, could get 6 or 7 of these things, and they want them to activate them all at one time. So one of the things we do is if they have that case and they put in multiple eons, and we actually in the background figure out that the add-on software is actually for the box, we just stick everything together and we don't even ask for the activation code because we already know what it is. It's kind of I'll show you the use case, but it's cool.
This is my 25th Eon computer that I bought from HP. Do I need to keep track of these entitlements, or can I somehow create an account to keep track of all these separately? So if I need to go back.
Yeah. Did I pay you for that question, Dan? I'll buy you lunch. Yeah. Keep in mind that I logged in as me. Right? So when I log in as me, I can go to Manage My Assets. I go to My Entitlements. And these are the entitlements that are associated with me over time. We do a quick survey of what's on each entitlement, so I can really quickly find out, oh yeah, I need the one that has left hand on it, and that's this entitlement. That'll drill into that entitlement, right? Or under Manage My Assets, sometimes, HP wanted a product view because a lot of times if you're activating something, you say, oh, you don't care what entitlement's on, you just want your product, right? So here, I can simply look up, I'm like, yes, it's virtual SAN I need to activate. I know I've got 6 of these things. It's on this entitlement. It's locked to that specific box. And oh, by the way, let's just say I have to reformat it or something, and I just need a copy of the key, right? Or I lost the stupid email, right? I can just log in as me. I go to the entitlement, and then I can re-download it. Okay, I don't have to call anybody. The view that I think is really interesting is by locking ID. Now, it used to say, we had this long discussion with HP. It's like, what do you call a thing that you're locking to? Is it a system? Is it what was the term they used? Target? Yeah, I didn't like Target, but they ended up locking IDs. Anyway, so the idea is, let me as the manager, right, say I'm an IT admin, right, go in and say, show me what's on this server, right? So I log in. Let's just pick this guy here. So we'll look up all these details in EMS and say, okay, on this server, it's the HP serial number, whatever it is. Show me all the products that are activated on it. I see I've got 21 licenses activated. Again, I can just grab the keys again if I need to. and it's a real quick way of just figuring out what's installed where. Go ahead, John. It's a question. That button shows up under certain product line where they actually want the user to actually regenerate them for a very specific reason. Darum mentioned something. I lost my train of thought. Oh, yeah, licensing support. When I worked for IBM, we'd get these calls all the time. Customer X has licensing issues. And it's usually not about the technology. It's usually not a bug in the software. It's usually their licensing issue is, where's my stuff, right? What did I buy? When did I buy it? What's active? What's not active? And so forth. It's usually asset management issues. And those drive up the cost of support, right? If you can't offer that in a self-service way. So we really tried to take that user angle in designing, these services here.
Are they physically shipping the software to the customer, or if there is software that's required of this product?
Yeah. With phase 1 of this project, right, the email that goes to the user has the software download link. HP hosts all their software downloads. And then the second phase, what we're lining up for next year, is that the software download links are going to be integrated with the web portal like you and I have been talking about. Right? Yes?
Is this an individual view, or do they have it on the view?
Individual view. We'll talk about customer. Exactly. It's a long story. It was a data integrity issue around showing, a customer view, because you have to really understand and define what a customer is, right, in order to have that view.
What if I'm a channel partner? What do I want to see here?
You're going to log in as you, and you're going to see
You're going to be the activatee.
you. We talked about this.
This phase of the project, we're not doing channels.
Okay, right.
So essentially,
Yeah, you're right.
log in
Yeah, you're right.
as an
Sorry.
individual.
I mean, the project started this big, and it ended up being this big. I can't remember what got moved out sometimes.
So the customer could pass the EON number on to somebody else.
Yes.
And they could
Yes.
self-register that.
Yes. Yes.
Okay. Yeah.
Yep.
At this point, they don't care in order law. They don't care who's activated.
I don't care.
You got that number.
Yes. Right. That was a business decision HP made to say, if you have the entitlement order number, you can activate. That's it. Right? Because they have partners. They have too many users to to really lock it down per person. Karen.
Are they having to manage RMA licensing transfers?
Yes. Boy, that's a good question. Rehosting. Yes, absolutely.
Before rehosting,
Yeah, no worries.
something an authorized user can do.
Right.
What if two people have the EON and they try to get the keys at separate times?
First one that gets it wins.
First one,
Yeah.
it's a policy decision.
Yes, absolutely. All right. Yeah, rehost. Thank you. Gosh, I can't remember anything anymore. All right, so consider the case where the end user. I've activated on a certain system, this system up here, and I need to move the licenses to a different system. Right. So I'm replacing the hardware. Okay. Now there's a definition in EMS as well where some of the products are defined on the HP side as customer rehostable, right? So some products they didn't want to allow the users over the web to be able to rehost them on their own. So there's a flag that's set. Is this product rehostable? And so we'll pick this. I have to pick this twice for whatever reason. So we're essentially saying, here are the products on this machine that I want to move. Again, I've got these 3 products that I'm sending back, and then it gives me the ability to put in a new locking ID. Again, if I can reuse an existing one. Let's say I manage another server, so I can just simply pick the new one. And what we do under the covers is actually we do 2 transactions. We send the license keys, we reset the original entitlement and say, these things go back on the shelf, if you will, and then activate them again under the covers for the new system. But to the end user, it's one transaction, right? I pick, go. We're doing a lot of the heavy lifting. Again, we're not exposing that stuff to the end user. We're trying to make it easy. But yeah, that's it.
Are they linked so that license actually gets revoked from the system, or is that just they have to return it to them?
They are not linked. If you think about that, that is a function of the technology, right, that they're using. So our technology, RMS, you folks are using RMS. We have the ability within RMS to require or you have the ability as the vendor, right, to require your end users to actually deactivate it technically before they're allowed to move it. In this case, most of their stuff doesn't do that, so they just, put them on the honor system to do the right thing.
A lot of the HP license keys are replacement keys, so you can only apply one key at a time.
Yeah.
Anyway, so
Yeah.
Yeah. The issue is, as you know,
Yes.
if they don't return the old device, it's still active, they have two devices that are running.
That's a good point, and that is why some of the products are customer rehostable and some of them are not. So the ones that are super high value, they don't want the customer just to be real. They don't want to make it easy to move software around, right? So that's a business decision for sure. Hi.
Is there an underlying assumption that the units in the field are connected to the internet?
No, not at all.
So there's no reposting that requires a refresh of the local license.
Nope, we generated the keys and we sent them off by email. So if I'm managing a system that's behind a firewall, if I'm running a financial facility or something, I take those keys in my inbox, drop them on a USB stick, and bring them in and activate my stuff.
Are you keeping a rehosting history, so tracking
Yes.
how
Ah.
that has happened, on which devices, stuff like that? So it's
I don't think we are.
Well, I mean,
It's easy to
we
do.
have the transactions noted, but we're not doing any control on it at
It-
the moment. I think that was a request.
It was a request, yeah.
We're not-
We can do it. It's actually easy to do. We can pull it. Anyway, how am I doing on time? Okay, so let me. Sorry, about 10? Oh, perfect. I'm going to go back to my slides. I think for the most part, you get the gist of what's going on here. Just to emphasize a couple points, again, because we are architected on our web services, you don't get with the competition, by the way. Ooh, sales pitch. But because of that web experience, we have a very HP-centric user experience, right? Again, this is not a Safenet. You're not locked into the Safenet way of doing things, right? We want to do business. We want to let you do business the way you need to do business rather than forcing you to do business the way, that we do it. Yeah.
My experience with EMS web APIs is sometimes, it has web APIs that you need to issue like 13 of them to do something.
Martin's going to talk about that.
I'm curious if you guys encountered like variations of that problem.
Absolutely.
I hesitate to call it a problem. But
It is a problem.
Yep.
Yep.
So does that raise its head here?
Really good question. It's a good segue, Chris. I'm going to let Martin answer that question. So without further ado, I'm going to introduce Martin again. He runs Stellar out of Los Angeles, and I think your slides. Actually, you know what? I'm sorry. I have to do this, and you got different tech. Oh, here it is.
Oh, you're just doing that thing. Got it.
Yeah, there you go.
Thank you, Dave. So there's several reasons why we're excited to be here today. I think one of the most prominent ones for us is you've heard the Safenet team over the last couple of days talk a lot about partnerships. And I think that's really one of the reasons why we're extremely excited to be a part of this. Besides, it's a very exciting project and challenging problem to help solve. But it is that we're really here as partners, both to Safenet and to HP as well. Like Dave mentioned, we have been doing the Webby stuff for some time. So we come with some great background and experience. We focus on digital projects, services, and platforms. I think that the thing that I want to highlight, even though we've been doing it for a long time, I think, and I think you guys are all aware of this, we started out trying to be very smart and creative with everything that we did online, and I think eventually we reached a stage of where things have started to become too complex, I think. Any project we start, we will normally start out and we will try and think about how can we make everything that we do as simple as possible for the user. So we live by a motto called less is more is extremely important to us, and I think that that's came into play with this project that we've been doing here. Experience in the entire gamut of webby stuff, as they've called it, strategy, user experience, design. And we also have done a ton of work on the technology side, both front end and on the back end as well. And even though we're going to talk about how we collaborated with Safenet and HP on trying to take what's a really complex business on the back end and make it as simple to use on the front end, we were definitely heavily involved in terms of the entire technology that needed to happen with this, and we'll talk a little bit about that. So not trying to point any technologies out specifically, but I think in the 17 years that we have been in business in the webby stuff, I'm calling that from now on, digital is out. Yeah, it does. Is we worked on almost all the platforms that are out there. We're very good at coming in, turning the fire hose on for about 1, 2 to 3 weeks, work with our clients, take it all in, making sure we digest all of the requirements so we know what the end goal is, and then from there on start working on trying to create the most simple user interfaces and experiences for the clients to make sure whether you're selling something, you are doing a unlocking an entitlement and activating your products, that it's very easy. And a couple of things that I've taken away from this conference yesterday and today. We know the cloud is important, but I'm glad you guys all showed up on this track here. This is the exciting track. We also know that you guys run an extremely complex business. And so just a couple of things. I do think it's a perfect partnership. Safenet runs a really complex business, and what we try to do is try to make that seamless and easy to use on the front end as possible. I'm hoping that you guys from the demo that you felt that way, that it that it did seem that way. Why don't we just jump to it? I'll share a little bit about it. So it's all about getting the experience right. I think a lot of times what is happening, and I'm sure you guys can all attest to this, you run very complex businesses. We do as well. Safenet does as well. And what happens is everybody is being pressed a little bit from a perspective of both time and sometimes budgets as well. So we're all working within some very strict requirements all the time. We try not to take shortcuts, right? So it starts by getting the experience right up front, right? I mentioned a couple of weeks of requirements gathering normally. I think it would be fair to say that we're probably 4 months in, and our entire team, which was not only the front end, we had a fairly decent-sized technology team on as well, because we needed to understand the technology full on. We needed to understand all of the web services and the various calls. There are multiple calls in certain instances that are being called, right? And we needed to know how those operate, and more importantly, we needed to know how to consume them and then spit it out in a simple way. So I just wanted to use this as a reference that even though it's a fairly simple customer portal, and you saw Dave just jump around in between just a few screens, there's a fairly decent flow and use cases that were thought about in the process up front. Just want to show, just to activate, this is just one page of many. We had numerous rounds and discussions, several solutions identified, only then to realize that maybe they weren't perfect enough, going back to the drawing table and doing it. But this is just to show you just one page on, how we deal with just an activation alone. Multiple scenarios, a lot of annotations on the wireframes, a lot of different ways that this can be done. I don't want to bore you with these. This is just again, trying to make the complex easy. HP runs a really complex business as well with their licensing management. And again, we spent an enormous amount of time going through on, once we know the important thing is the activation itself, but at a certain stage you're going to have to manage your assets.
So are these pages the way that you presented your design for approval?
Well, so that was before design, right? So we'll go through the entire experience. So first we try to document every single potential scenario that can happen in a user experience, making sure we have them all covered. And just sharing some of the stats, right? The deck itself was about 58 pages of wireframes and flows and annotations. We probably, over a period of almost 2.5 to 3 months, went through 17 rounds of revisions to this document in terms of just getting it all right. So there's a ton of work and logic and user experience efforts that goes into just getting the portal right, and in the end trying to produce something that is really simple to use, hopefully simple to use.
So you have a library of web APIs that EMS uses, but I'm assuming that your web interface also has to interact with a lot of other types of APIs. So you must have ended up with quite a library of different APIs that you can call or send in.
Welcome to this summer. Yes.
Yeah, I think that's a fair statement. You know, we talk a lot about taking something complex and making it easy, and which I'm hoping we have done a good job of doing on the HP side of things. You know, we have a decent-sized tech team on our side as well, right? We have a solutions architect, several developers, we have a front-end developer as well. Because we need to understand every single call and piece of technology and knowing how to deal with that web service and then rendering the service on the front end. So as much as we here as a partner building the front end piece of the system as well, we're heavily ingrained. There's no meeting or no decision point or no requirement or no logic that we weren't part of sitting talking through, because we always thought about it from a front end perspective as well.
I want to answer Chris's question more about the web service calls. So, and I'll do it in a larger context. Obviously, with a customer the size of HP, they push us, and they have some pretty complex requirements. They're a fantastic customer, so everything is very professional up front. But there are lots of things that we right, David? This is David Wright from HP, by the way. But there were a fair share of gaps in our product, or things that we just didn't do well that we needed to get right. So a couple points I wanted to make. Around the web services, there are certainly some efficiencies that the Stellar team pointed out, and we're going to have to get them right. And any other enhancement, or all the enhancements that we're doing for HP, get rolled into the GA product. So they are pushing us to deliver, just to be a better company and to deliver better value to all of you. Right, so this isn't, they're not on an HP build. Well, actually, you probably are right now, pre-deployment, but it's all going to be GA code. So.
It sounds like part of the lesson there is having your UI team involved in the technical architecture
Yes.
and the actual engineering.
Yes.
Also, well, it shows the value of your company for one, right? But it also shows the value of having that interaction, because you can identify where efficiencies are
Exactly.
will really, little work on the architecture side will go a long way in
Yes.
efficiency on the
That's right.
presentation
Yeah.
side.
Yeah.
And,
That's a big lesson.
and one key thing that really made this project fly is on our side, in the PS side, we have just a top-notch solutions architect. That he owns the whole solution technically, right? So he's working with Martin's team and HP, and he's the guy that's bringing, the whole thing together. If it doesn't go through him, it doesn't get done, right?
I think it would be fair to say that we walked into this engagement thinking that we were going to have some touch points and we were going to work with each other on making this work, and I think it's fair to mention that we've been spending a lot more time than what we thought, all for all the right reasons, but really is that we were much more tied to the hip to each other than I think we thought going into it. So I know we're getting might even be over time, so I'll rush through this. Again, I think, I don't want to speak for Safenet, but I think all the material from the 2 days will be made available. So we just wanted to put in a couple of screen grabs. And again, it's just showing, right, we know that the majority of the business get people in and out and do their activation. So really simple page, and the amount of time, blood, sweat, and tears that went into this. They were great, all great meetings, by the way. But just that it's really easy for them to get their activation done and then move on with their work. Again, really managing a very complex business with a lot of moving pieces and with a lot of different ways to handle their licensing management. We still think we managed to do it in a fairly simple way where it's easy to find your stuff, manage it, work with it, and if need be, reactivate it. Just a little bit about us as well. I mean, this is what we've been doing for a long time. Here's just another example. There was an internal operational insights analytics tool from Netflix. Netflix has a couple of hundred customers nationwide. So as you can imagine, they have quite a bit of data. And so again, for them to take hundreds of thousands of data analytics and inputs, right? So we work with them. And again, I think it's the same vein, right? It's taking a lot of complex data and a lot of information and try and just put it in some dashboards and in some information that is easier to consume and make some sense out of. This is a great organization down in San Diego that has created it's a grant tool where they manage all of their various grants and whatever. And again, it was a fairly complex tool when we started, but just a way, again, of going in and taking fairly complex data and just making it easy to manage and work with. So some considerations. I want to finish off with some things that Dave talked about as well. So we're still engaged. We're in the heat of things right now in the HP products. Everybody wishes luck. It's going well, but it's actually exciting. I think some of the considerations that we'll do, and we talk about this in everything that we get engaged with, is build it ready to scale. So Dave talked about is that there was large goals in the beginning, and eventually you're going to have to funnel those goals down to what is manageable within your current deadlines or timelines that you're working with. But always consider the end goal in mind with everything that you want to do up front. It's really difficult to go in, and obviously nobody want to end up in a situation where we didn't think about something and then all of a sudden you got to start all over. So that was definitely something that we did from the beginning here. I know this is a no-brainer and everybody lives this way today, right? But you got to think about it from every single screen size today. I got a couple of cousins in their early 20s in Denmark. They don't even have iPads or computers anymore. It's all happening on the phone. And so one thing that we do a lot in everything that we do is we start on the smallest screen and we work our way up. It's extremely important that you do that. Obviously, leverage Safenet's experience. This has been a great project, to say the least. We've worked on some really challenging projects over the last 15 to 17 years, the group of us at Stellar. I think it's fair to say this is probably the most complex, but I also think up until now we haven't launched yet, but I think the most rewarding in terms of really going in and working on something exciting, even though it could look a little boring on the outside, right? I get a license, I got to activate it. That's right. We work with some tremendous brand. That's been a great experience as well. But I really feel that you guys run a very challenging business, and this is good stuff. So select partners that are experts in their field. I think we have been grinding our teeth with Safenet on a couple of projects now, and obviously we're doing a monstrous project right now. I think it's important that whatever you do, make sure you bring somebody to the table that have partnered before on some of these items. It's a really difficult thing to do, but I know it's something, I know Safenet does it a lot, and it's something that we strive at Stellar as well. We try, in everything that we do is to try and not reinvent the wheel every single time. We live in a world and in a technology where it's really difficult to do. But if we can go into an engagement and be 20 to 25, 30, 35% ahead of the game because we kind of understand what needs to happen around the project and we don't have to go back to the drawing board for everything. So for example, we could take on the next engagement and we could probably reuse a good 50, 60% of the wireframes, the experience, the knowledge that we gain of all the web services call, how EMS works on their back end, and we can reuse that again. I think the last David, anybody in here? No. Yeah, I think we should open this up. I think it's important as well is that you need to get together with partners as well that understand the full end-to-end, and what I mean by that is just once you come to the last piece, right? When are you ready to either launch this or cut over from a previous project as well? Again, some of the very challenging projects that I've done in my career, I think this is the first time I've been to a cutover planning meeting with about 40 people in attendance, sitting for 3 straight days in a conference room, and we didn't take a lot of breaks. And it's not because we didn't want to. Everybody was really engaged, but this is a tremendous effort. So I think whatever you do, again, bring players to the table that just know how to get you to the end game as well. And so I think that will be a huge recommendation as well. And I think that's the end.
Did you have to have multiple rollback plans for this in case this part didn't work or that part didn't work?
So HP had several in their back pocket that are just sitting waiting to go right now. We're in the middle of the cutover plan right now.
Did you want me to say something to that?
Yeah, sure, absolutely.
So I work at HP. I originally wrote Safenet because for two main reasons. One is, like he just said, they really understand licensing. I've been doing licensing in Thailand. Actually, John and I started together. He's at NetApp. I worked at NetApp with him too. But we started in early 2000 with Safenet. And we did all semantic licensing. So if you want to see some bad licensing experience. But we learned a lot, okay? So I joined HP a year and a half ago. I actually had spent some time working in Safenet prior to that, both as a customer and working with them directly. So when I went to HP to help with licensing, not for this project particularly, for Pan HP. So I will point out this is a huge project. This is maybe 20% of the whole problem faced by HP, quite apart from the fact we're splitting into 2 right now. So there's a whole lot more to do. This is just the tip of the iceberg, and it's very tiny compared with the rest of the company. The 2 main reasons for bringing Safenet in were, one is I was the only person at HP. They hired me, quotes, as an expert, and then they ignored me, right? Because they knew best, right? So I cheated. I brought these guys in because I knew they would say the same thing as an outsider. So it was originally a consulting project, right?
Yep.
Which we did with Dave and Julie to help the requirements for this one, quote, tiny part of HP, all right? And through that process, and HP was sold more on the ability of Safenet than the product. The product was very secondary, okay? But it's really a whole package, right? The second thing that attracted me, and I sold HP on, was the partnership. Well, these guys have talked about how they partnered, but it's truly been a 3-way partnership. I'm involved in a lot more than this project, so I don't have day-to-day on this project, but I certainly have week-to-week. And it's really a challenge. But these guys have taken the challenge away in so many ways. All the questions you have, technical questions, we obviously have had too. And every single time they've turned around and fixed it. And it's not been a perturbation. So in answer to your original question, we actually had 2 fallback plans. One is not to move off where we are right now, all right? Which is probably less urgent than it might have been a few months ago. We have a much simpler solution than this, which is a miserable customer experience that we could have survived, all right? But at this point, we really haven't worried about it too much because these guys have been so good.
This wasn't planned, by the way.
Yeah,
Just-
I'm buying him lunch today too.
Just putting that on record. Yeah.
Yeah.
Any
All right.
other questions?
We'll be here all week. Try the veal.
All right.
Thank
Thank
you
you,
all.
everyone.